Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I make it 6 o'clock. So if we could start the meeting, just the usual warning really that this meeting will be streamed live, and if anybody doesn't want to appear on the screen, and if they notify the clerk at the end on the left, Gertie. Right, so if we could then move on to the agenda, and the first item is apologies for absence.
We received apologies from Councillors Al Hamdani, Hoban, F. Hussain, Islam and Councillor C. Vivian.
Thank you. And I believe we've got Councillor Harrison as substitute.
Yes, and Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, and Councillor Williamson, yeah. Right. Urgent business, not been notified of any urgent business. Declarations of interest, has anybody got any declarations of interest? No. Public questions?
None received, Chair.
None received, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting, which has been circulated. Are we agreed that it's a correct record? Thank you. If we then go on to the first item, if I could take the two together, items 6 and 7, because they're for the same application, only one's a listed building consent, and it's the Prudential Buildings, Union Street, and if I can ask the officers to outline the application to us.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Chair. So yes, as you'll see from your agenda packs, there are two applications, agenda items 6 and 7, which are a listed building consent and planning application relating to the Prudential Assurance Building on Union Street in Oldham. Many of you will know the site. It is in a prominent location within the town centre's conservation area, and also adjacent to the Metrolink and the Sainsbury's supermarket. So the building itself is in a very poor condition. It is a Grade 2 listed building, which reflects why we've got the listed building consent application alongside the planning application. It has been in a vacant and poor state of condition for some time, and largely due to water ingress. A lot of the interior fabric and the original historic fabric has been either lost or damaged over a sustained period of time. The building was formerly used for purposes in what is now Class E, so office type uses. And essentially the proposals put forward now, with the council being applicant, is to bring the building back into active use. And to facilitate that does require extensive works to restore the building, but also to protect some of the historic fabric that's remaining. And obviously the benefits associated with bringing a building of this type back into use is it safeguards its future as well to an extent. So there are elements of the application that do relate to changes to the building, such as roof alterations, which include some new dormers, an atrium, replacement windows, and largely internal works, particularly to the banking hall, as it's known. We've not had any objections from any consultees, but that is subject to the imposition of the conditions set out in the recommendations. To the best of my knowledge, we've not had any third-party representations in objection to the application. And of the formal objections, that it does include Historic England, who are supportive of the proposals. I think it's worth me saying as well that the case officer for the application has been our own conservation officer, so it has been scrutinised thoroughly from a historic point of view in terms of making sure it's done sensitively, and the plans and the amendments that have been made throughout the process do reflect addressing some of the concerns that have been raised as part of that. So the key issue really is to consider the impact of the changes to the building on its significance, and what we mean by that is its impact on the heritage value of the building, and its consequential impact on the character of the town centre conservation area that it sits within. As I mentioned, the clear benefits of bringing the building back into use, secures its maintenance, and also prevents further water ingress as well, which has been a cause of a lot of the damage that's been caused to the building over time. So we do, when we're assessing heritage applications, we do have to consider things in the balance, like we do with all applications, and having regard to the relevant requirements of our own policy, which is 24, but specifically linking to the National Planning Policy Framework, we have considered that the changes to the building do amount to what is termed less than substantial harm. And the reason for mentioning that, as set out in the report, is less than substantial harm to a historic asset can be approved, providing that there are public benefits that outweigh the harm. So the benefits of the scheme are clearly bringing back into use. It's a fantastic opportunity to bring the building back into active use. And that is probably one of the key drivers behind recommending the application for approval. So for the avoidance of doubt, we're recommending approval of both the planning application, which is item 6, and the list of building consent application, which is item 7. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Has anybody got any questions on the presentation at all? No? Okay. Anybody would like to make any comments? Okay then. If I could then move approval of the planning application initially. Is that, and that's seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. And secondly, could I move approval of the listed building application? I lost myself then. Seconded. Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. If we can move on to the second item of the day, which is 25 Queen Street, Royton, Oldham, and I'll ask Emma to outline the application.
Thank you. The application relates to 25 Queen Street, which is a 6-bedroom and terrace dwelling. The applicant seeks to change the use of the premises from a single family dwelling to a family assessment unit. The proposal would involve families living in the premises for up to 12 weeks to have their parenting skills assessed and developed with the support and guidance offered through a registered social worker. The premises would be staffed full-time. The premises would remain predominantly residential, albeit for temporary purposes, and with some element of care in the form of the support of social workers and healthcare workers. There's no parking proposed with the application. However, parking for the premises is available on street and to the side in Dunkley Street. There's no parking restrictions within the vicinity of the site. No external changes are proposed, and the site will retain its residential appearance. The application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions of the presentation? No? Okay. We do have speakers on this, and the first speaker who's representing the objectors is Mr. Dean Burgess. Mr. Burgess, you have 3 minutes. Near the end of the 3 minutes, the clerk will just give you a time check. If you could start on your own time, if you just press. Thank you.
So the first thing to say is that the residents are angry about how this matter has been dealt with, in so much that only one resident was personally informed about the proposal, and all the other residents have found out by word of mouth. And it's clear by reading the 42 public comments that oppose the application that there's a strong feeling about this. Many of the comments have been submitted by people that live on Queen Street, which is a quiet residential street consisting of terrace housing which backs onto a wooded area and which is in a conservation area. There are several comments in favour of the proposal, but these seem to be one-liners and don't really give a flavour of being written by people that live in the area and would be impacted. You would hope that the geographical location of the people that have made the objections will be given more weight, and these include people that live on Queen Street, Charles Street, Church Street and Dunkley Street, to name but a few. Perhaps the voice that should be heard the most is the widowed lady that lives directly next door to this property and who is attached. She strongly opposes the proposition and the very real impact that she feels it will have on her daily living and, in fact, her mental health. I don't think anybody would argue that such facilities are required, but this opposition is not to do with the facilities themselves, but more the location of the proposed site. You won't have to visit the street and the property itself to see that it really isn't in keeping with the general area. There will undoubtedly be an impact on the house next door. How could there not be when the proposal is that up to 12 people could be in the premises at any one time, plus a possibility of visitors? And indeed the application itself states the proposed use will involve a use which is likely to be more intensive than ordinary residential occupation. The application further states that it's on a regular bus route and cites that Shaw and Crompton and Durker tram stations are nearby. Those two locations are actually over 2 miles away, and it is not on a regular bus route. The application also states that there would be a small amount of employment associated with the use, and I think this is somewhat misleading, as really the only employment would be the workers who would live on the premises, and they would be employed regardless of where this location was.
30 seconds.
One only has to think of the lady living next door being impacted, but there are in fact over 40 other complaints or oppositions to this proposal, which have a running theme of antisocial behaviour, future house values, and indeed the suitability of the building itself and parking issues. And therefore, on behalf of the residents, I would ask that strong consideration be given to its rejection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Just 3 minutes, well done. Has anybody got any questions that Mr. Burgess might want to answer? No.
Chair,
Yes, sorry.
there's something what I picked up when it says number of properties notified. It says only one person was notified. Was any letters gone out?
I think Emma can answer that.
So we wrote to 7 neighbouring properties, including the adjoining property, the one on the opposite side of Dunkerley Street, which is, I think, 27 Queen Street, number 1 Dunkerley Street, and the properties to the rear. I also posted a site notice outside of the property. As you can see, I think you can't see, from just near that red car there is actually a lamp post, and that's where my site notice was posted, and it's also been advertised in the MEN.
Right. Thanks very much indeed. If nobody has got any further questions, yes, Councillor Clough.
Can I just ask, is this for private provision, not something delivered through the local authority? I've just looked up the company and they've only been going to, or they've changed names in the last 2 months, so I just wondered if it's private provision or not.
It's not a council application. No. Sorry. Yes, Councillor Lancaster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Speaker made reference to the public representations that have been received. I was just wondering if we could investigate further around where the source of support and opposition came from, just to help inform discussions going forward. Is there any way for us to tell what the local opinion is in this instance?
I don't know whether you've got that available.
So in terms of obviously what's on public access, obviously we don't give out people's personal data, including address. So in terms of having it to hand, no, we don't have that geography. Obviously it's something that we could look up if needed. But I think the point to be made really is that while I appreciate what the objector said about his feeling that those who live locally, their opinion should be given more weight, that's not how the planning system works. Every objection, every comment is given equal weight and considered equally in that sense. So in a sense it doesn't really matter where the objectors are from in the planning sense.
If there's no further questions, I would now go to Anne Dixon, is it, who's going to speak on behalf of the applicant.
My name is Anne Dixon, Senior Planner at Pegasus Group, and here to speak on support of the change of use application of a 6-bed residential dwelling to a family assessment unit at number 25 Queen Street. No structural changes are proposed, so there is no impact upon the conservation area. This service will offer assessments of parents and their children who will be living at the unit full-time for 12 weeks. Assessments will focus on parenting skills, the emotional and physical development of the children, promotion of parent self-esteem and confidence, psychological assessments, and the child's developmental and care needs. There will be a maximum of 3 families residing at the site at any time, and the unit will be permanently staffed. Visits would be restricted to 1 social worker or health visitor for a meeting, and visits from family members and general public will be prohibited. Whilst at the property, parents and children will only leave the premises if accompanied by a staff member. Policy 2 of the development plan states that the key to creating sustainable communities is transforming the education, skills and health of local people. The application creates a healthy, inclusive and safe place to live by providing temporary housing for parents and their children whilst they are being assessed by trained professionals. This demonstrates that the proposal is in line with Policy 2 and the NPPF. In terms of employment opportunities, it would be commensurate to the property's location and would provide towards the economic function of sustainable development in the NPPF. Policy 9 addresses amenity impacts. The proposal is a primarily residential use, and the level of noise and activity which may result is not considered to have an impact of concern. The other consideration is antisocial behaviour. It should be noted that the occupants will be on assessment while at the site, so there will be a strong incentive for them to behave appropriately. Alcohol and non-prescription drugs will not be allowed on the premises. There is existing CCTV to the exterior that will remain, and internal CCTV will be installed. Thus, problems seem highly unlikely. In any event, as many appeal decisions have outlined, there needs to be a causal link between any proposed use and the fear of crime. At this stage, no substantive evidence appears to demonstrate that such a link exists. Therefore, the proposal will accord with Policy 9. Policy 5 guides development towards the most acceptable location and promotes the use of public transport. There will be a maximum of 4 cars for staff members, and the site is located in a location sustainably for public transport, and cycle storage will be provided on the site. Therefore, the impact doesn't seem to be an impact. The officer's recommendation is approval of the application. Therefore, it is requested that members support this recommendation and approve this application, which is compliant with the development management policies of the Oldham Local Plan and the National Framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has anybody got any questions of the speaker? Yes, Councillor Wilkinson.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask is why has this been put where it is, and is there a need for this, and how have you gone about it? Have you worked with the council to get this put together, as in not necessarily the plan application, but just is there a need?
Sorry, so my name's Grace O'Reilly. I'm hoping to be managing the site if planning is approved. So just to answer the question, I've been a social worker for the last 14 years now. I've worked in Oldham, I've worked in Manchester, I've worked in Rochdale, so I'm used to kind of like working in the local area. There is a need for such a facility, and whilst we've not worked direct with Oldham Council, I know from my personal experience of working in children's social care within Greater Manchester that there is a big need for such a facility within the area, and it will be utilised by a lot of the Greater Manchester councils.
Councillor Clowen.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, you mentioned 4 staff vehicles. Is that for 24 hours, 4 staff during the daytime and 4 staff during the evening time?
So it depends on the amount of families that are resident at the time. We will staff accordingly. There won't always be 4 members of staff there. Overnight there will be 2 staff members. So in the day there'll be a maximum of 4, and then 2 overnight if the unit is fully well, if it's fully occupied.
Is there any further questions? No, I'm sorry, you can't. No.
Okay, thanks.
We now have, if everybody's happy, we'll go to Councillor Pithin. I pronounced it right again.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to thank the committee for allowing me to speak tonight regarding the application for the assessment unit on Queen Street. There is concern among residents that a change of use from residential to an employment use would generate additional traffic and on-street parking detrimental to highway safety and our local residents' existing amenities. The effects of the proposal, for example, a change of use to an employment use in a tightly packed residential area would contribute to a cumulative change on the character and amenity of the local area, community and its domestic residents. Finally, this area is the only conservation area in Royton, and I feel the change of use would not fit in with the aesthetics of this tight-knit community. Therefore, I commend this committee to refuse this application, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pithian. Has anybody got any questions of Councillor Pithian? If not, I'll throw the application open for debate. If anybody's got any contributions. No. Nobody like to say anything. I think that committee might be helpful if they knew that if this application wasn't for temporary accommodation and was for permanent accommodation, it wouldn't even need planning permission. And obviously it might be a better offer than some offers that could be put in place in the property. If there's no other contribution, I would move that the application is approved. Is that seconded? All those in favour of the application, please show. Thank you. Those against? Those abstaining? Thank you very much. The application is approved. If we go on to the next item on the agenda, which is an item for noting, which is an update on the appeals process. Has anybody got any observations or questions on it?
Noted.
No, thank you. And that concludes the meeting for this evening.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Bye.